a lot of my work nowadays is helping people not use things against themselves, because we're so habituated to doing that.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. Today I'll be talking with HeatherAsh Amara, author of numerous books, including the Warrior Goddess Training Series and her latest, The Warrior Heart Practice. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about a simple process to transform confusion into clarity and pain into peace. So welcome to the show, HeatherAsh. Are you ready to shine?
I sure am. So great to be here with you, Michael, and with everyone on Inspire Nation.
So glad to have you here as well. And I won't jump ahead and give away the whole story, but I once went on book tour with, a 25 and a half foot RV thing. And I managed to one day to get broken into, have 2 car accidents, laid in broken glass, and almost tipped the thing over. So I can resonate with your Airstream Woodstock experience. With that said, how did you meet the Toltec teacher, Don Miguel Ruiz, and what was your life like beforehand?
So I met Miguel when I was, I think, 24 or 25, and I had a dream about him. So I woke up one morning and I said to myself, right, where am I going to meet this really powerful human that's going to change my life? And a week later, somebody came into my office and said, oh my God, you have to meet this man. And my whole body went, I'm not ready. And it took me a year to actually meet him. And the moment that I met him and met the community, I was just like, yes, this is what I've been looking for. And my life before then I was really blessed. I've had a lot of amazing teachers in my life. And I felt like I was coming to the end of an apprenticeship with someone that I loved dearly, but I had this sense that there was some piece that I was missing. And when I met Miguel, that was really the piece that I'd been looking for to really learn how to stay centered in my life in a new way.
Was this part of the practice of being able over that year to get yourself in that warrior heart state where you could lean forward? Because we often have this fear. There's little niggling, a knowing inside of us how great we are, and it scares the heck out of us, and we put up these walls to keep ourselves from it.
Yeah, I think that's really true. That so often we're afraid of our own power, and I've definitely had that journey in my own life of how to keep expanding, how to keep growing, how to trust that it's all going to be okay. There's definitely this wiring of like, if I keep shining my light, if I keep bringing myself out into the world, then somehow I'm going to lose all my friends, or people aren't going to understand me, or whatever the programming is, whatever the story is. So.
Thank you. We've had Don Miguel Ruiz, we've had Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. both on the show here, and they are often talking about domestication. And I wonder if we can go back to your life at age 3 when this first kind of, I don't even know if hit home is the right thing. We'll say hit the floor and broke.
Yes. So the story is of having an experience of running around and being super excited and breaking a vase, or having my sibling break a vase. And the first thing that we think of when we think of something broken is, oh my God, I'm going to get in trouble. But when you're really young, you don't think of, I'm going to get in trouble. You just think that made a loud noise. And then you go off and run and play again. So I always imagine, if you imagine mom's coming home, mom's had a really rough day, she's really stressed out, she's really frustrated, gets a call that the babysitter's gone and that the kids are by themselves. You can imagine mom walking into this room where her favorite vase is shattered on the floor and the 2 kids are laughing in the other room. And her response is probably not going to be, children, I've had a very difficult day. Let me take a deep breath and talk about this vase, which I loved so much. It's going to be, who broke my vase? So when we're little, we have emotional reactions to something. So if you can imagine being blamed for something you didn't do. So in this case, being blamed for breaking the vase. And for humans, we have emotional reactions to things. So if you can imagine going to my room, sitting on the bed and feeling disappointed, feeling scared, feeling confused, like what just happened? Mm-hmm. Why is mom so angry? Why did I just get blamed for something? That we all go through that emotion, and the emotion's normal. But what we do next is what creates a lot of challenges in our life. And what we do next is we make up a story. So what I've seen in humans that with our reactions, when your emotional body is clean, you have a quick emotional reaction. You have the emotional reaction, it moves through you, and then you make a choice of what to do next. But when we put the story on top of it, and often the stories aren't based on truth, this is where everything gets really confusing in our lives. And so examples of stories that we might make up. If I'm playing really hard and having a lot of fun, I'm going to get in trouble. I should lie faster. If I blame somebody else first, I'm not going to get in trouble. I can't trust my mom. I can't trust my sibling. I can't trust anybody. Mom loves my sibling more. So if you grab onto one of those stories, so let's say that we grab onto mom loves sibling more, what happens is then we start doing something called selective evidence gathering. So we go back into our lives, and let's say mom locks on the door and says, honey, I am so sorry. I know that your sibling broke the vase and that, I had a really frazzled day and I love you so much and I love it when you play. So she says all the right things, but now in your mind, you have this idea, mom loves sibling more. Let's say you grab onto that one and you go and sit at the dinner table and mom passes the mashed potatoes to your sibling first. And in your mind, what the mind immediately does is, see, I knew it. She does love her more. We have evidence. And then if later in the evening, mom passes you the ice cream first, you don't even see that because the data doesn't fit your story, or you start to twist it. Oh, well, now she's feeling bad for me because she knows that I know that she loves my sibling more. So there she's just trying to make me feel better. So we're incredibly creative in how we make up these stories.
And the stories often go to kind of a baseline point of we are not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I am broken. And we use our entire lives to prove that true.
Yeah, exactly. We have these baseline stories. And I've really seen in the Western world especially, it seems like we have very few baseline stories. One is I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, or I'm broken, or some combination of that. And then from there, then we create these other stories. I have to be perfect. In order to be loved, I have to be perfect, or I have to not trust humans. Humans aren't trustworthy. Or if I just make everybody else happy, then I'll somehow be happy as well. So we create all these strategies and all these ways of coping with these really deep agreements around worth, really around our worth in the world. And it's interesting because it's so habituated in the Western world that we just think that's just the way it is. But I remember reading this great story of a Tibetan, and it might have been the Dalai Lama, but the Tibetans when they first started talking to Westerners, being like, what? Yeah, do you remember that? Like being like, what, you don't have self-worth? Like, how is that even possible? Like, you're a human in a human body. Why would you not have self-worth? So it's a foreign concept to a lot of cultures, but in the West, that is so ingrained. You're not good enough.
And when the Dalai Lama came over, he mentioned it in his first book on happiness. I think he co-authored the book on happiness. He mentioned also that we take in the West this idea of self-help. First off, something needs to be fixed, but then we turn it around. So now because I'm not fixed, something or being able to do the self-help work good enough, I'm even worse.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true. And I feel like that's been a lot of my work nowadays is helping people not use things against themselves because we're so habituated to doing that.
Let's dive into this. And I want to pull on this thread on our worth, on seeing clearly who we truly are. First off, going with the Toltec tradition, what is big soul and little soul? So
I learned the Toltec cosmology from Don Miguel many years ago, and it's this big picture map of how we got to where we are. I found it to be incredibly helpful. So this idea that each of us has what we call a big soul, and our big soul is the part of us that travels over lifetimes. That is our particular ray of light. It's the way that we shine in the world, and it's incredibly unique just to us. And that is eternal. And that part of us is connected, it's deeply wise, it's loving. And then we have what's called our little soul. And the little soul comes online when we're born. The moment you open your eyes, light hits your eyes and goes into your pineal gland. And that light has resonance. In the Toltec teachings, light isn't just light, it's information. There's information encoded in the light. And so when that light comes into us, what we're getting is what we call our little soul, which is our personality, what we also call our ego. So it's the part of us that believes it's separate. And it's the part of us that is separate, this physical body, this mind. And we also get a dose of the current dream of the planet, the current way all humans are dreaming. And that dream of the planet, we can see it really easily. If you turn on the 5 o'clock news, if you pick up a major newspaper, if you look at advertising, scarcity, fear, drama. And the message of advertising is mostly you're not enough, buy this thing, then you'll be loved or you'll be okay or you'll be fixed. So we get that indoctrination through the light, through the current dream of the planet. And so we take that on at a deep level. And when we're little, we're really connected with our big soul. And you can see this in little kids that are 2 years old and younger. Like they're just pure love and light and exuberance. And if if they get hurt, they'll cry, they'll express it. And then they're like, okay, off to the next thing. They don't have stories. So it's beautiful for us to use little kids as a reminder of what the natural human state is. Because in that case, the little soul and the big soul are talking. And if the little soul's confused, it just looks to the big soul like, what's going on? The big soul's like, everything's good, honey. But we start to separate. So by creating the stories, we create all these stories so the little soul can't see the big soul any longer. The little soul starts fixating on who it should be, who it shouldn't be, how it should be in the world. And it creates all these rules and all these agreements of how it's supposed to be, and it loses sight with the big soul. You bring in a dose of fear and a dose of not good enough, and you've got a recipe for a lot of suffering. What is the little soul's biggest fear? I think the little soul's biggest fear is around being abandoned or not being enough. I think it comes back to being abandoned. And I think of it this way: is if you can imagine a little kid that's been lost in a marketplace. Mm-hmm. And doesn't know where they're at. Yeah, had that experience, exactly. And the terror, there's that incredible terror. And it's the survival terror of, I don't know how to do this. That little soul of us often gets locked into that part of, I'm all alone, I don't know what to do, there's nobody here. Even though the big soul's like, right here, just turn around. But the little soul's looking out here and seeing the chaos. And so the little soul has that fear of being left, basically. You talk about two main actions that we can do to reconnect our big soul with the little soul. Maybe you can walk us through this. First, do more of what we love. Yes. So one is when you're doing something that you love, when you're immersed in something and you're not thinking about it, you're not criticizing yourself, you're just in it and you're in that place of just absolute joy, your little soul and your big soul are connected again. So do more of what you love, whatever that is. Whatever that is. And it's that deep joy, not the temporary, I'm going to eat more chocolate. That's a temporary thing. But what is it that when you're immersed in it, it's usually creativity or walking in nature or really connecting deeply with someone, then that brings you back into connection with that authentic little soul, big soul connection. I like it when you're looking for that thing that you like to do or liked to do where you completely lost track of time. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then second one, cleaning out everything that is between little soul and your big soul. Yes. So if you can think that all this agreements, if the big soul is here and the little soul is here and there's all these agreements in between, we want to start using the little soul to help us clean the agreements. So for most of us, the little soul gets caught in judge and victim. And so it actually builds more and more story. Yep. And what we want to learn to teach the little soul is clean the story up, create less drama, less struggle, and use the little soul as an ally rather than an enemy so often that the little soul becomes. Thank you. We're going to dive into the 4 chambers on how we can do this. First off, though, what is an agreement? An agreement is something that we say yes to, and we can have conscious agreements or unconscious agreements. So a conscious agreement is, I will work at this job for this many days, at this job rate for these exact things. So it's very clear, conscious agreement. We're shaking hands and saying, we both say yes. But we also have all these unconscious or subconscious agreements that we don't even realize that we have, that were our parents' agreements, that they may or may not have said consciously yes to, that just get passed down. There's the agreements that the culture has. There's agreements that our peers have. So anytime that we take on something, even if it wasn't ours to begin with, if I take it on and say and agree to it, even if I'm not agreeing to it here, but I'm agreeing to it in my energy body, it's ours to clean up.
What's a common agreement then?
A common agreement is, God, the one about not being good enough is so common, unfortunately. Another one that I see is around people using their voice. Like, this is a really big one often, of a fear of speaking up, or a fear of expressing oneself, or a fear of shining brightly in the world. And there's agreements around that. If you speak up, that you're going to get abandoned, or people are going to fight you, or going to see that you're not smart enough. Like, there's all these agreements that get tangled up. So often people are scared to use their voice, and they don't even realize they're scared to use their voice. They just think, oh, I'm being nice, I'm being kind. But it's out of fear of standing in one's power, or really standing up for oneself.
The crazy thing is, until we lean into that, until we do some of these practices, that we don't realize that we've been indoctrinated, or we've been domesticated to have taken that on as our own. Instead, the truth is, I'm a good person if I'm quiet.
Right, exactly. And it's completely justifiable. And then we go into judgment about anybody who's not a good, nice person. So it's so true. We have to be willing to step back and look at how we've been domesticated, what agreements we have, so we can start sorting through to decide, yes, this one, I want to make it conscious, and I really agree with this one. Because there's some agreements that you're like, yep, this one works. Mm-hmm. And there's many agreements, however, that you bring it up into your conscious, and you're like, why would I believe this? Like, if I had a choice, I would never choose this.
We also start to see not only the wacky world around us, but the wacky, as I believe Don Miguel calls it, the government of our mind, mm-hmm. that we have tried ourselves, convicted ourselves, even hung ourselves for something that's not even ours. So let's go from there. Let's talk about the four chambers. And here we're in essence, you broke this down as the four chambers of the heart. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about feeling, story, truth, and intent. And then we're going to dive into each one for a few minutes.
Okay, beautiful. So the warrior heart practice is a way for us to separate out these different aspects of ourselves so we can clean them up and put them back together again so they work effectively. And I think about it like if you have an engine and the engine isn't working well and it's gotten really rough, you would take the engine apart, you'd clean all the pieces and put it back together again. And that's what creates the function, the effective function. So that's really what we're doing with ourselves. So we're separating out, first chamber is the feeling chamber. What am I feeling? Second chamber, what's the story that I'm telling myself? Third chamber is your truth. What's actually true here? What can I see as true here? And then the fourth chamber is your intent. What's my focus? Where do I want to put my attention and energy? And then you go back through those four chambers.
Thank you. So we'll go first to the feeling chamber, and we're going to take you back to age 14, the first time that you said, I don't want to dance with the feeling chamber. What happened? Mm-hmm. How'd you wall yourself up?
Yeah. So a lot of us do this. I had an experience when I was 14. We moved around a lot when I was a kid, and I had my first boyfriend, and we had to move again. And so we were moving from Bangkok and moving to Singapore, and my parents basically said, we have a month to pack everything up and move. And I was heartbroken. It was so difficult for me to leave where we were at. And I remember I called my boyfriend up and told him, and right before I picked up the phone, I thought, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to just shut my emotions off. Wow. And I went completely neutral and completely cold. And I remember as I'm talking to him, just saying, we're moving, bye-bye. Mm-hmm. I was like, this isn't good. Even as a little 14-year-old, I was like, this is not a good thing. Yeah. But I didn't know what else to do. And a lot of us do that where we have experiences when we're young, we just don't know how to process it, or we're not in a safe environment to process the emotion or to understand how to support ourselves. And so we either end up repressing the emotion and we shut the emotion down and we spend a tremendous amount of time exiting the emotion, not feeling it, or we start to cycle the emotions. Yeah. We start to tell ourselves a story. We have the emotion causes us to tell more of a story, and we can just keep the emotion and the story going without actually cleaning anything up. It's like using a dirty rag to try and clean a window. So in the feeling chamber, what we're learning how to do is be in direct relationship with our feeling body exactly where it is now, not where we wish it was or what we hope was happening, but to really come back in relationship with, hi, sweetheart, all right, what are you feeling now? What's going on? Separate from the story. So we're separating out. You can tell your mind, all right, mind, I'll be with you in a minute. We're just going towards the feelings now. And it takes courage. It's part of why I called it the warrior heart practice, because turning to face your feelings without blaming other people, or like projecting onto other people, or without exiting them by distracting yourself in any way, but just sitting takes courage to really reconnect with the emotional body and be with the pain, the jealousy, the fear, the frustration, like whatever's there, without telling the story about it. And to really access, where is it in my body? What's happening in my chest? What's happening in my heart? What's happening in my hands? So that you're having the somatic experience of your feelings and of your emotional body, not just thinking about your emotions, which we're so good at usually.
Yes. Thinking about stepping away from it, putting a barrier between us and the emotion. Although then we identify ourselves as the emotion. I am the anger. How do we, for people who aren't practiced at this, I have like a process, stop, drop, and breathe. How do we, I'm going to use Ram Dass's term, snuggle up with that emotion and start to get comfortable with the discomfort?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it really does being comfortable with the discomfort. I always invite people to just practice stopping multiple times a day and putting one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly and taking a breath and saying, hi, sweetheart, how are you feeling now? And coming back home to yourself, giving yourself permission to feel. It's challenging in our modern world because we're running around with our to-do lists and we end up living up here. And so just coming with that grace and that, hi, sweetie, hi, what are you feeling, will help to reconnect. So that's a place to start. And then whenever you're triggered, whenever you're confused, whenever something big is up, that's the time to go, okay, I'm going to turn towards and get quiet and feel what I'm feeling in its fullness and give myself permission. And it's almost like dipping your toe in a pool. It gets easier to immerse yourself, and you just know it's going to be uncomfortable for a little bit, but then it'll feel really good.
So it's almost like it is a practice of the more that we recognize, ooh, wait, I'm tightening up. Instead of taking our swivel chair and turning it away from it, it is now time to turn right toward it.
Yes. And say, hello, I see you. And it's a practice for sure, because we have years of habituation of turning away, of distracting, of cleaning the house, or of getting a drink, or of gossiping about somebody else. And to have that compassion of your heart to just go, all right, I'm going to retrain myself.
Let's go from there. Let's go to the story chamber. So we've got the second chamber here. And what in the world is mind mushing?
I love this. So the story chamber is about, what exactly am I telling myself? What is the story that I'm telling myself? And you're willing, again, to turn and face the story. Listen to what your mind is actually saying, to not bypass the story by, oh, I'll make a better story. No, what are you actually telling yourself? Yeah. And the idea of the mushing is, I learned this from a Unity minister, which I thought was so great, which is making
beep.
Is it? Yeah.
Making up beep.
Yeah, exactly. So mushing. And this idea that we gather all these different things and then we smush them together without realizing we're not telling ourselves the truth. We're taking a bunch of storylines and weaving them together. So really our work in the story chamber is to be willing to excavate what's the deeper story that we're telling ourselves. And I think about, if you're an archaeologist, you don't just walk onto a dig and pick up a shard from the ground and go, I found it, we're done here. Like, that's the surface. And now you need to start digging down to the history. And almost 95% of the time when you're in reaction to something in a big way in the world around you, it's because there's something from the past that hasn't gotten cleared up and things have gotten mushed. You've tied different strands of a story together that's now resonating here, but it's actually tied back to something from your childhood or something from a much earlier time. So it's a practice of gently starting to separate out what are the pieces so that you can see them.
So if somebody finds, oh, wait, this is my story, it's not me, how do they begin to pull on the strings to actually unravel that story?
Lots of patience to realize that you have your own stories, you have your parents' stories, you have the stories that you learned from your schooling. There's a lot of things that have gotten tied together. We're also incredibly creative in making up all sorts of stories.
Yeah.
And so just like if you have a bunch of cords or a bunch of necklaces in a bag and you've carried them around for a little bit and they all get tangled up, if you just get in there and start like, I'm going to straighten this out, you just make it worse.
Yeah.
But if you go in and go, okay, I'm going to start pulling the pieces together and being curious, and it may take time. So often we think the stories are reality. Yeah. We don't even realize it's a story. We just think it's the way things are. And so learning to step back and witness, am I telling myself a story? What's going on in my head? That practice of witnessing what you're telling yourself, being curious about it, not trying to fix it right away. I think this is one of the really big gifts of the Toltec teachings, is that it's not about, there's something wrong, I have to fix it. And like, when I fix it, I'll feel better.
I'm bringing out Henry the Tortoise here, who teaches us that any problem that you want to fix fast is probably best fixed more slowly.
So true. It's so true. And that methodical, I did this the other day where a bunch of my necklaces had gotten tied together, and I just went live on Facebook and I'm like, let's just hang out with you. Let's all hang out together as I untangle my necklaces, because this is the attitude. Slow, gentle presence. That's what it takes. And it's not easy, but we can practice that and have more and more just love for ourselves at how knotted things can get inside of us. And that then extends to everyone around us. We step away from tying knots in other people's stories and just like, oh, wow, let's hang out here and untie this together.
Woo-hoo. Speaking about hanging out and untying things together, what can you tell us about Julie the Judge and Victor the Victim?
I had this vision when I was writing about the story chamber of these two beings running around. And like in my mind, my story chamber is this huge library, and it has all these books that have all the rules. And there's Julie the Judge, who's like pulling the rule books out and opening them and going, oh, see, you blew it. And there's that part of us that's constantly judging us, often against an image of perfection of who we think we're supposed to be. And that image of perfection is not like we think it's cohesive. I mean, yeah, it's a total hall of mirrors. Exactly. You can never live up to it. So that's what Judy the Judge is like, always trying to get you to follow the rules and punishing you when you don't follow them, when you don't live up to her standards. And nobody else can, hardly live up to her standards either. And then Victor the Victim I think about her brother, who is always like, I'm doing it wrong. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's always apologizing, is always feeling like the world is against him, is always scared. That we each have these parts of ourselves, this judge and this victim aspect. And to untangle, we have to face them as well.
Thank you. So let's go from there. Let's go to the third chamber, the truth chamber. And let's talk about you're coming back a few years ago. You're holding these sold out journeys in Mexico. Everything is going great. You get home, you check your bank account, and
we're in trouble. So yeah, I wrote about an experience where I had a big reaction. I had a big story. So the truth is, there's less money in the bank account than I expected, period. That's just the truth. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is how much is in the bank account, period. The story was, oh my God, I'm a terrible human. I don't know how to run a business. I have no business running a business. I'm going to have to fire my staff. I'm going to have to stop teaching. I mean, like there's all this noise around it and all this judgment. And that's what happens, is that we have the story and we can't find the truth. The truth gets buried in the story immediately. Yeah. And so what I had to do was stop myself and just go, sweetie, what's actually true here? Like, stop telling yourself the story. What's true? And what was true is this much in the bank account, period. Everything after that was story.
How did you stop the story of, I'll use Michael's words rather than yours, I am such an idiot, or I blew it, or I was so irresponsible?
Honestly, lots of practice using what I call the period. So in my first book, actually, I had this brainstorm because I went into silence for 40 days. And I was still really active in the world. So I was still interacting with people, but without talking. And the first couple weeks I was in silence were hell. I mean, I had so much noise in my mind, and I didn't realize how loud my mind was. And I started calling it disaster mind. And from that experience, I realized how our minds are like these semicolon, comma, semicolon, comma. Like, we just judge ourselves for judging ourselves because we're judging ourselves, and we feel victimized because we didn't get the kind of nurturing that we needed to have when we were kids. And it just goes on and on and on. So I just started to myself, anytime I caught myself thinking and judging, I would just, period, take a breath. And I've just used that for years now. So I've learned how to stop, period, put a period in. Take a breath. What's true here? And so that's what the truth chamber teaches you to do, is put a period in the sentence and keep moving the period up until you get to what is actually true in this moment, not the story about it.
Thank you. What's willingness?
Willingness is just knowing you're not going to know how to do things. You have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to be wrong. You have to be willing to later go, oh, that was a story. I thought it was the truth. That it's okay that as we're learning, to have that willingness to try again, to try again, to try again is what allows us to heal.
And your absolute favorite truth, what would that be?
I am breathing. To just come back to that. That's the one truth that's always going to be true. I am breathing. Take a breath.
So let's go from there to the fourth chamber, the intent chamber. And what is this, and what is a query that we can put out into the intent room?
Mm-hmm. Your intent is where you are committing yourself to put your focus and your attention. And it's not, your intent is not, I want that person to treat me better, or I want the world to be different. You have to come back to, what am I going to put my energy towards in this situation that I'm unraveling through the chambers? And your intent is one word. So you can see as you go through the chambers, they become more and more simple. So the truth chamber is a lot more spacious. There's a lot more room. The intent chamber is very spacious. One word, which is going to be your North Star, which is going to help you take action going forward. So it's a beautiful thing to claim that intent, and it's a feeling sense. It's a quality that you want to be able to bring into your body. So it can be anything. It can be love. It can be presence. It can be play. It can be clarity. What do you want more of in your life? And so it forces you to name what you're craving, what you're yearning for, and then bring it. How do you embody it?
So you go into the truth chamber. You figure out what is the truth. Punto. Yes. And then we go into the intent chamber. And what is a simple step or two to get clear on our intent?
To get quiet. And I like to think about it as you're going to let the intent bubble up inside of you. So instead of your mind going, what's my intent? What do I want? That you let yourself get still. Let yourself really come into the present moment and open to, what am I craving? What do I want more of? What am I wishing was happening? So often we put our intent outside. Like, I want the world to be peaceful, so I feel peaceful. I want them to be nice, so I feel comforted. I want the world to be safe so that I feel okay about myself, whatever it is. And we're bargaining, basically. But to come back to going, oh, I want peace in this situation. And to hold that in our body. So the other way is to practice, that I found of helping people get into their intent, is to create a practice where every day when you wake up, pick a word. Pick a quality and then practice bringing that quality into your life throughout the day. Like, how would I bring compassion into this situation? How would I bring a sense of peace into this situation? And it's a beautiful way to strengthen that intent muscle, because that's really what it is. It's a muscle. And most of us, our muscle is like developed in the story chamber, but not developed in holding our intent.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's go from there. We'll talk a little bit about integration. And I want to talk with how to get back to intent when story grabs your intention. And in the beginning, or grabs your attention. In the beginning, I alluded to a book tour gone bad for me, where there's this cascading series of events left me laying in broken glass in the center of the RV going, I surrender, I surrender. And then the next morning, the sun shines bright and I started off on the tour again when I really got the cosmic smackdown. What happened with you with the Airstream travel trailer in Woodstock, New York?
It's such a good story. So I had lived in New York for a year, and I knew I was moving, and I'd packed everything up and gone and stayed the summer in Woodstock with some of my friends. And I had made the decision that I was going to move to Santa Fe, but I was really torn. Like, do I stay in Woodstock because I love Woodstock so much, or do I move to Santa Fe? And I just kept getting all of these obstacles that happened. Like the trailer trip didn't work, and then just all like over and over again, like you were saying, like obstacle. Yeah. And I'm like, what is this? Am I supposed to not move? Is that the message? And I finally just got really, really quiet. And I was like, okay, if I'm not supposed to go, give me one more sign. I'm going to try one more time. And I'm listening, like I'm present. I showed up here. Like, what do you want me to do? And I actually went and saw a movie with friends. I just completely shifted the energy. Instead of I'm going to push and make this happen, I was just like, you know what? I need to step back because there's something that's important that's happening. I hung out with friends, and then I went one more time and tried to hook up, and it worked. And I was like, okay. So it was beautiful, because what I really got from that is that it was like facing the obstacle with no story. Here's the present obstacle, deal with it. And at a certain point, the obstacles kept presenting. It was like, all right, now I need to step back and take a break and open to the bigger picture here and really listen. So it's a beautiful lesson in that.
Thank you. And it brings us to the next piece of the puzzle, which is the art of stalking yourself. And you started to do that. Ooh, let's step back and almost like a big kitty, let's take a look at what's going on. What is stalking?
Stalking is the act of really paying attention to what's happening in your mind, your emotional body, your physical body, your energetic body. And one of the easiest ways to see this is if you watch big cats stalk their prey. So if you watch nature shows, or even if you have a domestic cats are amazing to watch as well. And they'll really stalk their prey over days. They'll watch where it feeds, where it sleeps, where its patterns are. So they're gathering information and data and looking for the weak point. And that's when they attack. And if you think about house cats, like if you have a little feather on a stick and you're playing with your house cat, and your cat's weight, like it brings 100% of its attention to what it's doing. And then it attacks and it pounces. And if it misses, usually what cats do is this. I meant to do, they'll have a little bath, and then they'll go back 100%. If you start playing with them again, they're back 100%. And that's what we want to learn to do in our lives, is have that absolute focus on witnessing what's happening inside of our being without judging or making up stories or punishing ourselves for it. And if we miss, we just step back, get regrounded again, try again 100%.
So we would call that jaguar, or I'm going to call it big kitty stalking.
Yeah.
What is next? I can never make that sound right, but I love them so dearly. Eagle stalking.
Eagle stalking. Eagle stalking is about getting the big picture. So the way that eagles hunt is they'll go way above the earth and circle until they see a movement, and then they'll dive for it. And so there's also times in our life where what we need to do is stop taking action. Mm-hmm. Jaguar stalking is really about action, being in the world, watching what's happening. Eagle is like, let's get the biggest picture possible. And you're looking at your entire life. So you can see the patterns, you can see the habits, you can see the agreements that have woven through.
And then the last one, this one's really cool, spider stalking.
Spider stalking. So spider stalking is, if you think about how spiders hunt, is they build a web. So they spin a web and then they wait. And they're magnetizing their prey to them. And so there's times that what we need to do is get incredibly quiet and ask the right question, is how I think about it. What's the question? And then wait for the answer to come to us. Wait for the information. And sometimes if you're trying to figure something out and you just are always like pushing to try and figure it out, it eludes you. This place of spider stalking is you just get quiet, you open, and it's almost like you glance out the side of your vision every once in a while, and you'll catch what you're looking for.
Can you tell us real briefly, what is first attention, second attention, and third attention?
First attention is the way that we create our reality the first time. So it's basically what we're told the world should be, who we're told that we should be. So it's how we use our attention the first time. There's some ease in that because you just do what you're told, but it's also incredibly limiting. Second attention, you start to go, wait a minute, maybe this isn't true. Maybe I don't have to be an accountant like my dad and my grandfather. Maybe I could be a clown. Like you start opening up that there's other possibilities out there. And the beauty of the second attention is that you start to gain your power and you start to be able to change your life. The danger is that you can start to get dogmatic. This is now the way the world is. Because it feels so powerful to say, like I'm creating this reality. I'm creating my
which is another danger.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody should be this way. And then the third attention is really beyond trying to think or figure it out or hold a role. It's about being totally immersed in your big soul. It's about trusting the universe to such a degree that you show up, that you're in stillness, that you're in preparedness, that you're in authentic right here, and that you listen to that wisdom within you so that you know what your next action is. So you don't need to create a structure to understand. You're in the present moment in relationship with life directly.
Thank you. Thank you. All of this is helping us to get to a place of more joy, to get to a place of more peace, or whatever that intention is. But there's a danger that the law of attraction keeps coming back around and around and around, and is really a great way to beat ourselves upside the head if we're not careful. Yeah. What's going on?
What's happening is we're using the law of this idea of the law of attraction against ourselves. We can use anything against ourselves. So the idea of the law of attraction is my thoughts create my reality. And where we've twisted it is we're starting to do things like, and I've seen this happen, of people like, oh, you got in that really bad car accident. So what were you thinking at the time? How did you make that thing happen, that bad thing happen to you? And the thought is, if I just do it right, no bad things will ever happen to me. Okay, which is false. So the truth is, life is unpredictable. Life is complex. Life does all sorts of things that are out of our control. It's just the truth. And so to be in relationship with life and to realize stuff's going to happen. People are going to die. Challenges are going to arise. And it's how are you in relationship to the challenges? How do you bring your heart to the challenges? So you're not using the challenge against yourself. The difference of this obstacle has arisen and it's my fault the obstacle has arisen and I have to fix and understand the obstacle so that I'm a good person, so that or that I'm spiritual, or that, we can just create so much chaos in our head instead of obstacle, period. What's my next step? What's my intent? Basically, obstacle, period, what's my intent? Later, you can figure out why the obstacle arose, because sometimes that's good data. I look back when I was going through, I had an end of a relationship, which was really difficult. And I watched myself going into the past and judging myself and using it against me. And like, this is my fault. This happened. Where did I go wrong, basically? And after 2 days of this, I'm like, this is going to suck. Like, if I keep looking for where I'm wrong, I'm going to find all sorts of evidence. And this is not happy making. So I just made the agreement with myself, period. You're not allowed to go into the past until you're able to witness it and get the lesson. And it took me literally 2 years of that time. And I just was like, no, sweetheart, don't go into it. Because I was just rifling to make myself feel worse. No, sweetheart, come back, come back, come back. And one day I just went back and I was like, oh, right there. I would have made a different decision there. It was so clear. And right there, I would have made a different decision there. Okay, I got it. Thank you. And I got the lesson and I was able to apply it moving forward.
Any last words of wisdom before we dive into a brief meditation?
Keep coming back home to yourself without judgment, without punishment, of being, I think this whole process is about becoming intimate with self, of really becoming in right relationship with self, which is about intimacy and presence. So keep directing yourself in that way for all of us. May we all do that.
I love myself. I love myself.
Yeah.
I love myself. Hold yourself like a little baby.
Yes.
It's okay.
Hello, sweetheart.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. For those who aren't driving down the road, would you mind leading us in a short meditation? And this has been so much fun. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It's been great. Good. So if everyone can close your eyes, unless you're driving, keep your eyes open. Good. Taking a breath into your belly. Just take a moment to soften your belly and then exhale all the way out. Just let go. Good. And to imagine any place where you've created an image of perfection, of who you think you're supposed to be, of what you learned to be. And imagine that you can turn and face that image of perfection. Any place that you think, I should be younger, I should be thinner, I should be more spiritual, I should be more loving. Any place that you're judging yourself, no matter how helpful it might feel, turn and face that image of yourself that you've created, of who you think you're supposed to be. And imagine that you can reach your hands out and just grab hands with yourself, with that image of perfection that you've created. And that you can pull that being inside of you and let it dissolve. And come into relationship with the being that you are now. This perfect being, this expression of life, this expression of light. And imagine that you can hold both the beauty and the expanded self of your big soul, that you can feel that big soul self, that part of you that is connected. You can sense that anytime that you really are connected. So you can think about a time, think of something you're really grateful for, a time that you felt really connected. Just call that back into your being for a moment. That sense of connection, that sense of love, that sense of openness, that sense of faith. And then also calling in your little soul, that part of you that is so often scared and disconnected and trying to do it right. And really call that part of you in and say, hey, sweetheart, I'm sorry for all the ways that I've held judgment or victimization, tried to be something different, out of fear, out of struggle. Let me hold this little soul that's scared, that's trying so hard. And just let your little soul know, I'm right here. I've got you. And making this commitment that you're going to work with your little soul, with your mind, to untangle the stories, the beliefs, the agreements, so that you can get more and more free to let your big soul shine out into the world. Dedicating yourself to being a warrior of the heart and turning that little soul into your ally, so that every obstacle, every experience you use to benefit, you use to learn, you use to grow. And that you live from this place of witness and gratitude embodied in your warrior heart. Good. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and imagine that you're holding hands with your big soul and your little soul, which are both part of you.
Woohoo!
Hey.
This has been so beautiful, HeatherAsh. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's such a joy to get to share this work. And thank you for all the good, amazing work that you do, sharing your heart. It was really a joy to be interviewed by you.
Oh, wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, a definite heartfelt connection. Love it, love it, love it. And we are two warriors. I'll put that in quotes. Warriors. We're not talking about the kind that goes out and kills here.
Right.
We're talking about doing the work.
Yeah. Awareness. Warriors of awareness.
Where can people go to find your beautiful book, The Warrior Heart Practice, and to find out more?
The best place to go is to the website, HeatherAshAmara.com. And we have a ton of resources and all sorts of things there. The book is available online, anywhere you buy books online, at your local bookstore. Go to your local bookstore.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Support your local bookstore. Yeah. So you can just walk in and it'll be there. The book is really new. It just came out January. So it's a brand new baby book still.
Congratulations and woohoo! So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the Warrior Heart Practice, and begin transforming your confusion into clarity today and shine bright. Woohoo! Awesome, awesome, HeatherAsh. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for being patient with me while I fussed around to get it set up. I appreciate it.
Oh my God, did I just have the most beautiful, heart-opening, heartwarming interview with HeatherAsh Amara on the Warrior Heart Practice. Can't recommend her book enough. To check out more incredible interviews, click here, subscribe below. Be sure to give us a huge thumb up. Leave your comments below and check out our own open-hearted warrior boot camps with the link below. Love you guys so much. Shine bright. Woohoo!